Hello, Pirate Dave here, and it is time for another Phantom Sunday story. This time, Sunday story number 3, The Fire Goddess. To quickly recap the previous Sunday story, the precious cargo of Colonel Wynn, the Phantom, taking a break after his previous adventure to that, goes to a local town where he witnesses the kidnapping of Colonel Wynn. Colonel Wynn is shot during the kidnapping, and he has just enough time to give the Phantom a cryptic message and tell him to meet this girl named Gloria on the Arabian Peninsula. The Phantom goes out there. He's tracked the whole way by a couple of goons, but he finds Gloria. He puts their messages together and he discovers there's some sort of explosion, and he uses the goons following him to figure out that it's a dam. It's a dam that's going to be bombed and it's going to cause a bunch of deaths and destruction, but the Phantom does manage to save the day by the end, of course. And it's somewhat important to recall that, because this story is actually going to start out with those first couple of months while the Phantom's away. The first couple of panels on this is going to show what was happening, sort of the chaos that was happening back in Bangalla at the time. Just a quick note, there is a little bit of racial insensitivity in this story in the way that Guran is depicted. I don't know why, because he's been depicted previously in the Sunday stories, but he wasn't colored with the sort of minstrelsy that he is in this one. But let's go ahead and get just right into it. And of course, it starts out with a couple of soldiers talking about the jungle has gone crazy. There's robberies, there's killing. The natives have gone wild. And apparently, this tribe, the Mesabi tribe, is going around talking about the fire goddess. We hear and obey. Warrior of Mesabi, the fire goddess calls. The Mesabi try to command the Bandar to appear before the fire goddess, but of course the Bandar, they're legit. You know, they don't take guff from anybody. They're the pygmy people. They're the poison pygmy people, but they are concerned. The Phantom's peace in the jungle is completely gone, and they don't know where the Phantom is. And meanwhile, this fire goddess, this ancient prophecy of the Mesabi, seems to have come to life. Meanwhile, the Phantom is also returning to Bangalla. The boat that he's on can't dock because of how dangerous it is in the jungle, so he just sort of dives overboard, sends off a message there, and reunites with the Bandar to get reoriented on what exactly is going on. And here's the panels that I mentioned. I don't know why Gran is colored like this, but they relay that this fire goddess has returned and commanded the Mesabi to take over the jungle once again, and they relay the ancient history of the Mesabi. Once commanded by this fire goddess 5,000 years ago, they tore across Bangalla and they dominated the land and they settled on their plateau, and they've been peaceful ever since. But there was always the prophecy that the fire goddess would return to lead them back to the glory of conquest. And so the Phantom decides he's going to have a look at this fire goddess. She's as old as she says she is. That would make her much older than the Phantom, right? At 400 years old. Meanwhile, the Mesabi are running roughshod, continuing to take over and pillage other tribes. Phantom captures this Mesabi warrior, but he just gives him the same line about the fire goddess, so I'm not exactly sure why. And the Phantom finally heads to the Mesabi village. He catches a glimpse of the fire goddess there on her platform, but he also sees this man, the High Seer, and a couple of white guys. Well, that's interesting. What would white men be doing at a time when this fire goddess has returned? What the Phantom doesn't see is two men sneaking up from behind him. Oh no! But good boy Devil senses them and barks, and the Phantom fights them off. I love this panel. Look at that. Look at that pose, that shot. Really great. The High Seer and the men have seen the Phantom. They command the Mesabi to surround him, and the Phantom pulls out of his guns, and it looks like it's going to be a standoff. If you want me, you'll have to come down here and get me. Tune in next week to see what happens to the Phantom. Ewan, the Phantom gives up immediately. Understandable. He's not gonna shoot all these Mesabi warriors, especially when he might be able to solve this peacefully. The men, as well as the High Seer, decide that he will be a sacrifice for the fire goddess as an example to all. And as the fire goddess is on her plateau commanding it, and the High Seer is bring him forward to be sacrificed to the flames of the fire god, the Phantom just bursts out laughing. Look at that. The Phantom has seen something. The High Seer and the assembled tribe stare in amazement as he roars with laughter. What has he seen? This does get answered, what he has seen, but I will kind of spoil a little bit of it right now. It is not visible here once we discover what it is, okay? So you wouldn't have been able to see it. It's not visible, at least in these panels. So the Phantom breaks free and he jumps into the flames. Oh no, the Phantom has jumped to his doom. I knew I'd fall too fast to get singed. The Phantom's just fine, of course. He's in this sort of underground network here, fighting his way through. He's not exactly sure where this leads, but he hopes he's on the right track, and he is indeed. And the Phantom comes face to face with the fire goddess, but not for very long as the fire goddess takes off, and whack! Phantom gets knocked from behind. Looks like the High Seer made his way down there and caught up with the Phantom. The High Seer decides the tribe just saw the Phantom jump into the flames. They have to believe he's dead, so they're gonna feed the Phantom to this tiger called the Evil Eye. How sinister, how rough. How's the Phantom gonna get out of this one if he wakes up in time to even wrestle a tiger? And sure enough, the tiger is bearing down on the Phantom. Meanwhile, Good Boy Devil breaks free outside and he rushes through the village and he jumps in the fire and he covers his master and he's defending him from a tiger. Devil versus the tiger. Look at that. And as Devil is taking on the tiger, a spear is dropped into the cell. Oh, that's interesting. Oh no, Good Boy Devil is swiped by the tiger, but the Phantom sees the spear and he throws it at the tiger, and the tiger, the Evil Eye, is defeated. Meanwhile, the fire goddess and the High Seer seem to think the Phantom has been finished, but just then the Phantom reveals himself again, and he throws a spear and connects with the High Seer's cape, and he ties him up. For a fire goddess who's 5,000 years old, you certainly don't look your age. Don't go near her. She is the immortal fire goddess. If you touch her, you will be burned into flames. I'll take that chance. Who are you? The fire goddess speaks. Why did you laugh when you saw me on the flaming altar? I'll answer that after you tell me who you are and what you're doing here. Who is the fire goddess? And she can speak English and she can speak with the Phantom. This is interesting. I'll begin by saying that I'm a prisoner. The fire goddess is a prisoner. That's wow. And apparently she slipped the spear into the tiger pit. So the Phantom actually owes her his life. That's fascinating. Apparently she is actually a dancer named Mana. She was down on her luck in a local town, dancing for any job she could get when she was spotted by these two men who indeed offered her a job. She seems like a nice person, so why would she manipulate tribes like this? Well, apparently they got her all the way into the jungle before letting her know exactly what it was she was doing, so she didn't really have a choice about whether to disagree or not. And she spoke a Gaga Waga Bugu Zada Mada Lu. She made up a language. I imagine she could have spoke English, but maybe that's insensitive. Maybe some of the Mesabi speak English. Who knows? Anyway, that's Mana's story about being the fire goddess. And so Mana asks a great question. Will you tell me why you weren't afraid of me and why you laughed when you first saw me on the flaming altar? Now, it wasn't, again, you couldn't see it earlier when the Phantom saw her on the altar. But I will say the hint is in this panel right here. This is from the same week. Do you see what it might be? The first moment I saw you, it seemed queer that a fire goddess 5,000 years old should have on her arm a vaccination scar. You can see right there on the arm. Again, if you go back in the strips, you'll see that this does not appear on her arm until this panel right here. It would have been nice. It would have been nice to get that little tease Or that, not so much a tease, but a hint, right? If you were an eagle-eyed viewer, you could be like, "Oh, what's that?" And maybe in the 1940s, vaccination scar like that would have been much more apparent. I think that it's probably not commonplace knowledge these days. Meanwhile, the High Seer, knowing that the game is up, has escaped out of the underground, and he gets back to the two gentlemen whose names are Bose and Tarl. The Phantom's alive. He has the girl. She's told him everything. They can't get help from the tribe because the tribe thinks the Phantom is dead, so they're rushing off to take care of the Phantom themselves. But the Phantom comes up with a plan real quick, utilizing Mana's experience as an actress. Oh, you don't have to be afraid of him. I've killed him. Apparently, the fire goddess has killed the Phantom. She is truly powerful. Look at that. She's defeated the Phantom and his 400-year-old legacy. They ask a great question. You killed him. Why? We're working together, aren't we? That's a little. they seem to accept it immediately, but it's a little sus. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, they immediately get back to their scheme. Mana gets up on the platform to pose as the fire goddess again, as the platform is being risen by slaves in the next room. But just then the Phantom jumps up. Jump, Mana! Knocks out the guard. And as the platform is rising, the High Seer of the fire goddess comes. But it's the Phantom. Look at that. The moment that the Mesabi thought the fire goddess would appear, the Phantom comes up out of the flames, and he announces, "The fire goddess is dead." The High Seer tries to argue with him, but look, bro, dude just rose up out of flames after the Mesabi thought he was dead. Like, you're not gonna out logic the Phantom here at this point. Bose and Tarl actually have a bead on the Phantom. They have a gun on him right now, but wisely they realize that if they took the shot, the entire tribe would come down on them. So they decide to just take off. And meanwhile, the Phantom, "I command you to lay down your arms and return to your peaceful ways. The Phantom's law and the Phantom's peace have returned to the jungle." And the Mesabi, you can see there. "We hear and obey, O ghost who walks." Look like wah, 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 wah. Meanwhile, Mana has gotten changed out of fire goddess clothing. Although I'm sure that the white skin and the red hair will be will be noticeable to the tribespeople if they see it. At least she doesn't look like a fire goddess now. Meanwhile, Bose and Tarl are racing off through the jungle, and the Phantom can't let them escape. They've caused too much chaos and too much trouble. Bose and Tarl split up. I'm taking care of myself. Bose, wait for me. We have to stick together." And it looks like Tarl shouldn't have lingered behind because the Phantom jumped up into the trees and got him. Meanwhile, Bose is running off. He's too tired. He can't run anymore. He decides to take up a sniper's position. We've seen this before. See what'll happen. Oh, good boy, Devil. Look at that Devil coming in clutch again. This is the third time that he saved the Phantom's life in this story. And the Phantom takes Bose and Tarl to the local authorities, and they reveal that it was all the High Seer's idea. Apparently, they were just two innocent traders that the High Seer convinced to find a girl to pose as the fire goddess, and they would split all the loot. And so this is an interesting thing. The officer, "So you were the fire goddess. Incredible story. And who are you?" You don't know who the Phantom is? I guess that at this point the Phantom is still more of a myth among the criminals, and law enforcement either ignore him or don't hear about him, or who knows. But this will not always be the case. The Phantom will be well known, especially to the law enforcement in the jungle at a certain point. So the Phantom and Mana bid you farewell. The Phantom returns back to the deep woods. "We hear and obey, O ghost who walks," and all is right in Bangalla. Once again, the mystery of the fire goddess has been solved. I think this was the first time in there's been 12 daily stories so far and 3 Sunday stories, 4 years of stories, that the Phantom has dealt with something as mystical as he is, at least purportedly so, right? It's an interesting side note to say that Lee Falk originally had success with the character Mandrake the Magician, for which magic is essentially real, but for the Phantom, magic is not real. Mysticism is not real. All of that is, an illusion. It's a ruse. It's a mythology to help him do what he needs to do. And so that's going to be a consistent thing that we see. This is the first time that we really see him march it down. But as time goes on, we'll see him deal with more and more creative elements, and he'll have to think through these situations and how to expose these, because it's not just a matter of him knowing about whether or not somebody's a fraud, or whether or not, this woman is not actually 5,000 years old, but how he can dismantle that belief or expose it. In this case, he doesn't expose it, right? He doesn't convince the Mesabi that the fire goddess was not real. He convinces the Mesabi that he killed the fire goddess, that he is more powerful than the fire goddess, right? And there was maybe a criticism to be had about how he kind of keeps Bengali tribes in ignorance, with the exception of the Bandar, since they know his secret. Eventually, Leafolk will move him away from that sort of controlling aspect of the tribal's lives. For now, though, I do think that it's an interesting part of the story, and it's what really sets the Phantom comics apart from any other comics, is really how he continuously reinforces this mythology and reveals, mysticism to be a sham while maintaining the integrity of his own mystical mythology, right? I hope that you enjoyed the fire goddess. Next week will be the beachcomber. I'll give a little bit of a spoiler. Mana Day will return in the beachcomber. So if you liked her here, you'll get to see a little bit more of her next week. And it'll be another Sunday story next week, because the daily story at the time was just that long that they released the 2 Sunday stories before the next daily one. So I decided chronologically I'd just sort of keep with that format. But until then, I will see you then with the beachcomber Sunday story number 4. Thank you very much. Bye.